15 then. All right. Hey, you right there, guys? So this is our Catalyst Circle call number 15, and it's just Circle members today. We haven't been joined by people at CC Admin for, various reasons. So it's 18, actually. It's meeting 18, guys. Felix, you better not be pulling my leg with that one. So, Joey, I think you have the agenda. But before we get into that, I think we do a little round the circle in classic circle style. How's everyone doing? Felix, we'll start off with you. You're first on my list.
Tired, but fine.
Loving that enthusiasm. All right. Quasar, you're next. Are you able to speak? You're on mute.
Yep. I was on mute. Doing well. Thank you very much. We did not lose power or the internet during the hurricane, so doing some yard cleanup and stuff, and thinking about Circle version 4 and some things that were said during that town hall yesterday, which should be pretty interesting from a parametric point of view.
Awesome. Joey, how about yourself?
I'm good. Getting interested in the day and see what it brings.
Lovely. Steve, you're up next.
I'm fine. I'm anxiously marching towards the future with all of you. So I look forward to it.
Wonderful. Chris?
Well, I see Felix's tiredness and I raise him to really black, my baggy eyeballs.
Yeah, but Felix isn't down the pub right now, Chris. All right, so chill out.
That's true.
And I'm all right. I'm all right as well, guys. Yeah. So thumbs up. So I think everyone's allowed to share screen, but I'm not sure. No, host only. Well, that's changed. Cool. But I do have it right here. So I can actually just pull this up, and I don't mind taking all the notes, because then I'll just stick it in the GitHub afterwards. Make sure I share the right one. Okay. I hope you guys can see that, because I've just lost my picture of you lot. We can all see this okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So Catalyst Circle meeting 18 is not Thursday, the 29th of September. Everyone's here. Planned agenda. Oh, does anyone have any announcements?
My second dog is having his testicles removed today.
That's a sad day for everyone. That is a sad day.
And because it just happened to the first dog, there seems to be a pattern developing, and I'm not going anywhere with Kelly unless she tells me exactly what we're doing.
Don't drink any mysterious drinks that she gives you either. Make sure you pour your own water.
Exactly.
I've got a funny story about my dog, but I'll tell you it another time, Steve.
Okay.
Anybody else with some announcements? I'm going to take that as a no.
Yes,
Cool.
Fund 9 results.
Yeah, Fund 9 results are out.
And I guess Fund 9 results are generally through a lot of hot and heated conversations on the community. Many people on fire, disappointed, whatnot. And yeah, well, the nice thing is many more people care about Catalyst now, people who didn't care at all 1 year ago. But yeah, the engagement seems like clash of different ecosystems and communities. Where on one side you have Catalyst, on the other Cardano, and that Catalyst in many eyes turns somehow into something really evil for a bunch of Cardano folks out there. And that they actually start to address and see Catalyst as something what shouldn't be. And yet I would say there's a huge lack of community moderation who is able to somehow steer productive and constructive communications forward. Because the people which we have in Catalyst, they are not engaged on spaces where these conversations happen. And yeah, and this really creates frictions, and we lose people, we lose really valuable community members.
Yeah, it's it's definitely one of the more heated results announcements that I've seen throughout Catalyst. It's been very intense. A lot of people feel very hard done by. A lot of things have come out of it, and hopefully the next circle round can help address this and start to kind of steer it in the right direction moving forwards. I know there needs to be a lot more outgoing discussions with the community about how Catalyst works, how it's organized, and how we can implement tests. I think that's something that's really missing from Catalyst at the minute. We need more regular tests going on. Like Chris, you were talking about something that you guys are implementing, which I'm actually really excited to see, because I think that'll go a long way to improve
milestone-based funding, right? As an adaptation. Yeah, I mean, we need to put stage gates in place for sure. We've gone through, more than a year where the community have been trusted, the community of funded projects have been trusted to produce monthly progress reports for the community. And, it's evident that in the main, people do a good job, but there are obviously exceptions to that rule. And obviously now we've just crossed over a watershed moment where, something like 25% of all the projects that were funded this funding round are large sums of money. They're six-figure sums, right? And so with that, we need to make the necessary changes so that people don't just think that there's millions just going out of the door without the checks and balances, which then just prompts misinformation going around the social media and the community. I mean, it is really disappointing to see that there's been such a vehement response to a community vote. I mean, I think we need to call it what it is. The community still assessed and still voted on what those proposals are. There was more than 1,100 proposals on the ballot, and more than 200 got funded. If 400 got funded, would there have been as much, of a reaction? Probably. There's always going to be people that are upset and disappointed that their idea didn't get funded. It's
but that happens every time. I don't actually think that's what people are upset about. Right. I think that kind of becomes it, but I think there are more, because more people are paying attention, they're starting to notice more of a pattern in people who get funded and the kind of proposals they put in, and kind of where people who have been in the community for longer, or people who've already got funded, seem to have a much easier job of getting funded again. And I understand why people are upset about that, and it just is what it is. That's open governance, really, isn't it? It's kind of hard to. It's a harsh reality.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to be making, as in, the Catalyst Fund 10 is going to have some level of sort of changes to it, such as the milestone-based funding, milestones being as part of the proposal submission form for everybody that's going to be submitting. This is being piloted with the DApps challenge and projects that are over 75k currently, but I think that's just going to give, the community a lot more. It's going to give assessors some opportunity to be a bit more objective. I think what's going to follow on from this, what's happened within the last couple of weeks and the last few days, is when I'm looking at the data, it does feel like that we could change the criteria so that people could be a bit more objective. Like, what I mean, change the criteria, just if you allow me, humor me, an opportunity to riff for a second. What we have now is people essentially giving an opinion on 1 to 5, whether they strongly disagree or strongly agree with someone's answer. Everybody that's participating has a vested interest in Cardano because they're probably ADA holders. And unfortunately, unless the scoring rubric allows you to, give a score based on what is or what isn't actually in the response, it's really easy to lean into strongly agreeing that this is a great idea, because in a blue sky rose tinted world, you'd love to see all these great ideas come to fruition. When I look at the data, and we'll maybe talk about this next week, if you want to add it as an agenda item, I'll talk you through how I'll show you the data on proposal assessors. What I'd like to see is there be a reverse bell or a bell curve where the majority of the proposals are kind of getting mid-range scores. But what we actually see is a propensity to lean into the high scores. And as I said, it's because everybody would love to see great projects come to life. And it's really easy just to give a high score rather than, does this meet the measure of what it needs to as per the criteria? That's definitely what you need to see coming in.
There are notable exceptions to that high score tendency,
Yeah.
And that's like one of the people that I was speaking with this week, because I've had several conversations, was, really feels like the low scoring, but highly approved proposals, that there's something wrong with the scoring then, and the effect a low score in theory should have, on the chances of a proposal getting funded, and I think that's interesting. And I think you could set it up that way. I don't think people trust the assessment process enough to wholeheartedly embrace that attitude, right? And so I do believe that version 4 is going to have a huge voter turnout, most assuredly in comparison to previous circle elections, but also in terms of what we get for involvement, even on Catalyst funding rounds. I think there's going to be a lot of people jump in on this, and I think it's because we took the chance and let it happen on the Drip Drops platform. And high turnout, we have to be happy about. I don't think that everybody's going to be happy with the results from the high turnout. I think that some people in the Catalyst community who've been working and getting funded have a lot of assumptions about what is and what should be. And, I think they may get surprised.
Yep.
Good point, Steve. I wonder whether everybody would humor me for just a couple of minutes, and I'll show one visualization of data, not around the PA scoring, but actually around the decisions, because I think this is very, very interesting. Does anybody mind?
No.
No.
Okay, let me do it. Okay. What can you see? That's not what I want to show. I want to show this. You see this, guys? How well can you see this? Is the question. So
pretty good.
Blue is blues are funded, yellows are not funded, reds are not approved. Obviously, the further right you go, the higher the score, right? So right down here, there's the scoring from 1 to 5. It's actually pretty interesting that I think what we can say in general about this, and it is a general statement, is that the higher scoring projects are most likely to get funded. That's what you see. Mm-hmm. And actually, when you look at it right across the board, there aren't that many low scoring projects that actually got funded. Almost none. So I think it's just worthwhile calling out like that. Whilst this isn't necessarily, there's a project there in the DREP one that got a very low score that got funded, a very, very low score. And I don't necessarily just say that this is like a guide for being able to demonstrate that the projects that are high scoring are all super excellent. Because as I said, I think there's a propensity to lean into high scoring at the assessment stage. And that's one of the things that I'd like to see addressed with the community as we move into Fund 10. And it's something that we can probably impact and change quite quickly. Right?
Chris, do you think that's associated with the high scores being listed higher? first in the voting app?
I truly believe that the majority of people don't have a lot of good time, and they vote for projects that, like, I've been keeping an eye on Twitter, and they're like, oh, I just searched for mobile and all of the projects that I think sounded good, I just upvoted, right? And that's a fair approach. Like, if you don't have a lot of time, you're just going to go with, the path of least resistance, right? And if other people have put their neck on the lines to say that they think this project is high scoring and they've done some work, then I think for the general ADA holder, it's really easy just to kind of go with the top scoring projects. But then this is where DREPs really come into their own, right? That's the purpose of DREPs, is that it's meant to help the general ADA holder that has very little time just take a position without having to spend that effort, right?
Yeah, I think what happened previous rounds, I think we had some numbers where people were basically voting or voted 8 times or something like that. I don't know why. I think that's the number. They voted on average for 8 proposals.
Yeah,
and
about 8 to 10, I think. And then I think it's almost, I think we can add about 50% to that now.
So, but if you just think about that, that means they're probably voting for, like, say, 3 in maybe 3 categories, right? So they'll go into ones that they like the sound of, and they'll vote for like the top 3, or they'll scroll down till they see someone that they recognize and vote for that. It's obvious that that's a very simple kind of primitive look at how people would behave, because it's probably how most of us would behave if we didn't have the time or didn't have the energy to really go in and have a look at the proposals. Mm-hmm. So it's fair enough that higher scoring ones go. I think one issue that's come out from the community a lot is that it seems like a lot of projects get high scores very easily, even when a project doesn't necessarily have much grounds to work on, like just because the people are known in the community. And it doesn't necessarily mean that their project's even a good idea, but just because people know who that person is, then, or they maybe, yeah. I'm not gonna start going down a conspiracy rabbit hole for you guys, because it's not what this is about. But it seems like people who are more present in the community obviously find it a lot easier to get funded and get higher scores for proposals that don't often have the weight behind them that some lesser known teams put in. Because I've seen some proposals who didn't get funded, who have put so much work into their proposal. They break stuff down in so much detail. And then I'm not calling anyone out, but I've seen proposals that are honestly a little bit embarrassing, how little information there is to justify the work that they're supposed to be doing for the amount of money they're calling. And that's not necessarily anyone who has got funded. I've just seen those proposals. I've seen proposals like that. And it's raised a lot of issues in the community from people who I've spoken to, that this kind of thing needs to get addressed. And that a lot of that comes in at the assessment phase. And a lot of it also comes in before anything goes to the assessment. You know, like some proposals are cut out because they don't provide enough information. I think that part of the QA phase needs to be addressed. Just put a little bit more effort into it, or figure out a better way to comb through very thin proposals. You know, and I think that's something that the next circle can do. And I think it would have a huge impact on the community. I was
going to say, I agree with you 100% there, Reese. It will be interesting to see the change in that chart as the DREPs start their voting process. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything that everybody said, pretty much. And this is why it's an important thing we've got a period of time now where we can look at what we're asking the PAs and the VPAs to do, and put in place the right sort of structures and rubrics. And, you know, I don't need to tell you guys again, this is the sort of thing that I used to do anyway. So I've got access to like the sorts of rubrics that are being used at national innovation platform levels, and we can take inspiration from it, right? We're asking the same sorts of questions, so why wouldn't we have the same? And I can answer that question. The reason why we haven't had those sorts of rubrics in there just yet is because we've definitely needed to. Everybody's needed to kind of get to a level, right? And a level of comfortable and competence and familiarity with what the job is to be done. And I think we've gone through enough cycles now where there's some really good PAs and VPAs that have got a lot of good experience behind them, and can be objective. But it's interesting that within the PA guidance, there's like a line around saying you shouldn't be like scoring the idea. It should be what's in the proposal, and you have to take a balanced approach to that, right? You have to be both objective and obviously mindful of whether or not it's feasible and able to actually be done, rather than just what's written on the page. I'd like almost to see a question in the proposal form that says, if this was your money, would you give them that volume, or something like that? And that's a question in some other programs, right? If this was your money, would you give them the money?
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. I mean, you'd assume that if someone's going to vote for it, then they're saying that they would give them their money, right? Because ultimately we're all paying for this development. Whether or not, like, the thing is, every individual contribution is so small that no one even notices, right? But it does add up, and we are essentially paying for this work and these developments. So we are, and I think it's very easy for people to say, "Oh, you are voting with your money," and it's you who's paying for it. But it's hard to actually. It's not a very palpable kind of contribution, is it? Like, any individual doesn't feel like I don't feel like I take money out of my wallet and give it to a project, but that's essentially what we're all doing by taking part in Cardano at all. And I think a lot of people are getting much more aware of this, and it's bringing a lot more people in, and people are asking a lot of really, really good questions. And excuse Danny dancing around in the background. She's going out, but she'll be gone very soon. I'll make sure she says bye to everyone. But yeah, I think everyone, see you later, Danny. She's really good at handstands, just so you know, Chris. Yeah, so I think a lot of people now are taking a much more they're putting a lot more energy into Catalyst. Everyone's starting, whether or not it's coming from good or bad, good or a happy, like a positive or negative perspective, people are bringing ideas forwards. And I think it would be very interesting to see what ideas start to get listened to, and whether or not we can actually start implementing tests, because this, like, one thing that really frustrates a lot of people in the community is that Catalyst, people come to Catalyst, or people within Catalyst, because no individual, right? It's not like, oh, Catalyst, but they come with ideas of ways that things can be improved, and they feel like it just gets brushed off. And there are lots of really good experiments like this one that you're implementing now, Chris. There are some really, really good ideas out there that I've heard just in the last 3 days. Mm-hmm. Some people have come up with amazing ideas, and it's very easy to say, oh, this is an experiment, but we're not changing that much very often. And to just start implementing little experiments on an individual challenge basis, or with just certain parts of governance, or the way that we do the funding, I think would help us iterate much, much faster and actually improve the system a lot faster than the way it is. And I know that people will say, oh yeah, but we're doing funds every 3 months, every 4 months. It's amazing. It's so fast. It is. But you know what? We're not improving it very quickly. A lot of things are staying the same. And a lot of community members that I've spoken to are really annoyed about that things aren't changing fast. And anytime they come to anyone with any ideas, they feel ignored. Like, they feel ignored. which isn't what's supposed to be happening, you know. And I really want to try and figure out ways to start implementing these things. And I know it's the end of our term, which is a little bit frustrating, but I'm definitely going to be bringing them. I'm going to be running them past the people who replace us very soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to chip in that I think that most people understand how it needs to be fixed, you know, like what it should look like, you know, and I'm, you know, I'm really excited for that to get done, you know, because I think when we get interesting as a community is when we're not talking about, you know, the irritations of the process, but we're actually just debating ideas, you know, I mean, because we have a lot of ideas to discuss and think about, and in terms of having a community strategy, you know, and doing the things that we got involved in Cardano to do. So I'm very excited about Circle 4. I'm really looking for a lot from it.
And I know Circle in general has a bit of a bad rep, but the truth is the people who put themselves forward are going to have to deal with a lot of kind of snarky comments from people who aren't that involved in the process and don't understand what it is to take part. And that's just part of the reality. It's like politics, you know, like I have some very, very strong opinions about politicians. I don't know these people. I don't really know what they get up to or how they make their decisions. Like my opinion is completely irrelevant. And hopefully the new processes that we've put together to help bring the community forward and help push the Circle forward will help really make people have a better or more positive opinion of the Circle and what we're doing, and hopefully allow us to actually do more better work as well, because I think we can't, like, I think we could have this whole time. In hindsight, I think there's more that we could have done. Not that we didn't do anything, but, you know, there's always more, right? There's always loads more. And I think with these new processes we put in place, we can really change the narrative around Catalyst Circle.
Yeah, I'd certainly be really keen to get. We've been working on priorities lists, like just getting the sorts of things that people are saying that should be changed, how it's changed, ideas, right? We need to capture all that, because, you know, I see stuff, but, you know, unless it's kind of unless it's recorded and documented, it makes it very difficult to be able to follow up and you know, look into and investigate further, right? But yeah, I mean, I broadly agree that there's a lot of opportunity for experimentation. We have to be a little bit sensitive to the fact that, you know, if we change something in one challenge, we've got to kind of live with that for the next 6 months internally, operationally, administratively. And we're already, you know, constrained by resources. And so that's probably partly the reason why it feels like change doesn't happen quite as quickly as what everybody would like. But, you know, that's not to say that we can't look to explore what the art of the possible is, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. Right. Does anyone else have anything to add, or shall we move on? Because we've got a list that's been growing from an anonymous jackal, I think.
Well, no, it's not an anonymous jackal. It's me. And I've been really just taking notes.
No, that was just the name.
Oh!
That's the name on the Google sheet, anonymous jackal. It wasn't a dig at you, Quasar.
Well, okay, so we're just going to have some fun here.
All right, we're going to whack this back up. So,
anonymous jackal. There.
Anonymous,
Chris,
yeah, look here. I wasn't.
Okay, you're sharing your screen. Wonderful.
Wait, it said Zoom quit unexpectedly.
Mm.
But
what's going on? Oh, I'm back. Guys, can you hear me? Are we around?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Oh my God. I've never had internet trouble ever. And something just happened there while I was recording. Okay, so Fund 9 results. We've spoken about that. We had a nice little discussion. parameters mentioned in town hall, we're going to move on to now.
Yeah, so just because it really deserves a good amount of time, and unfortunately I'm going to be jumping off in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'd like to just couch this for next week, if that's all right. And then what we'll do is maybe Harris will join me and we'll go through a presentation top to bottom, and we'll just allocate a good amount of time for it. This will be basically running through, just to be for the avoidance of doubt, all of the parameters that are housed within Catalyst Fund 9. So this will be the first time that we'll be, able to, all take a look at it and understand what makes up the parameters of Catalyst. So if that's okay.
Could I just could I just have some clarity? How many more times is this group going to meet? Are we planning to meet every week until the election is finished? I mean, I hadn't really thought about us having that much more to do once the election is happening. But I'm not trying to get out of anything. I just kind of want to know what the.
Let's just say for the rest of the month. That's for the rest of the month, I would say, until the elections.
You mean all of October?
Yes, yeah. Maybe not every week, but we're going to have to be either meeting like this with a recording or having meetings on our own, asynchronously, just to make sure that the election and everything's going fine, because there's going to be a lot of questions coming back on that, if that's okay.
And we need to take time to onboard the new circle reps as well.
Yeah.
On my 80th birthday, I swear I'm done.
I'm tempted to renominate myself. To be honest with you, I've decided I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, and I'm getting back in.
Chris, would you mind if I just kind of pin you down for just a moment? Can I just ask you, is there a method for CCC4 to be funded in your parameter changes? You don't have to detail it, but just...
No, that's the intention. The intention is, now the accountability model's in place, we will have a platform in DWork where work is going to get logged. That was it, right? That was kind of the main construct. We have the concept of a confidence vote. I think maybe what we could do next week is to button down what a confidence vote means, when, how, and essentially I feel that's squared away. And then this is the experiment. Good, yeah, really good point, Joey. I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, thanks for the clarity as well, Chris, because we were all questioning it in the last meeting because you obviously couldn't make it. So we were all like, oh no, so what are we going to do then? What can we announce? But
yeah,
okay,
right.
Cool.
That was hard.
It was tough.
It wasn't in my diary, and then I was conflicted already, and I only saw the meeting or the message.
Right, don't worry.
Like afterwards.
Well, I had confidence
we got the anonymous
in you, Chris. I had confidence you were going to come through for us. So I was like, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
Meaningful work requires meaningful outcomes, requires meaningful compensation.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anonymous Jackal, you had your hand up. What was going on?
Oh man, I got to change my name again. With the parameter change, which would have been approved, going back to the Fund 9 results, there were a lot of town halls that were not funded. I don't believe they might have been approved, but I don't think they were funded. I was wondering if we've got the accountability model in place, and it'll cover hosting town halls through the various places that they're happening now. Is it possible to increase, or ask for an additional something over the 90K to facilitate those town halls, to help those groups and communities get funding or some support to continue those town halls? is the 90K set in stone, or is there still time to think about what's really needed for Fund 10 and for the community moving forward?
Let's have that conversation next week. So, you know, we somewhat need to let the dust settle on Fund 9. Results are out. Where I don't want to make promises, and I certainly can't just make a decision on the strength of it just been raised. But like if we can bring it up as a topic next week,
okay.
Yeah, this is something that the community infrastructure is important. It's super important. It's amongst the highest of priorities. Ensuring that there is good infrastructure in place with good foundations is important. So yeah, it's definitely worth. It definitely deserves some time, and with the parameter change, yeah, I'm sure that we can at least discuss it and explore what that might mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think when our only venue for funding is the voting process, then we're captured by it. And it's going to take a massive kind of effort to do anything on a permanent level.
Yeah.
It's got to be huge consensus about something, and we haven't had huge consensus about anything so far.
Yeah, and just a spanner in the works for that as well. I think it'd be important if we have some kind of parameter change to make sure that the kind of administration of Catalyst is consistently funded or actually funded. We need ways to bring new people in as well. And just like how we have the circle as like a temporary position, I think it would be worth exploring having temporary roles in the management of Catalyst as well. Maybe not like 3 or 6 months, maybe it needs to be longer, but I think actually enabling new people to come in, if there is consistent funding, then it will help us actually bring new ideas in, new people to help facilitate Catalyst. And I think it would be something worth exploring, even if it's not something we implement in the next fund or the next fund. I think that's quite important.
Well, and Chris, something that's really important to me along these lines is Charles's idea about a members-based organization. Because what he's explained that pretty good on the high level, but he hasn't really talked about how he thinks this members-based organization should interface with Catalyst. And yet he continues to bring up Catalyst as our governance and funding model. So it sounds like he intends for that MBO to interface with Catalyst, but like how that looks is kind of important for everybody to know and understand, so that ideas can be generated, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Catalyst is proto governance. It's not. It's proto governance, and there's. I'm even like going through like the beginnings of or extending the sort of research sprints and research efforts on diving into like what are some of the pain points within Catalyst, what are some of the frustrations that people have. So all the stuff that we talk about, listen, it's not like it goes nowhere. It's absolutely being taken on board. And what we need to recognize is there are different types of asks for Treasury funding. There are going to be different, and because of these different types of asks, we shouldn't necessarily expect that Catalyst is the only vehicle for Treasury movements and spending Treasury resources. Because of the nature of Catalyst, it's an innovation funding platform, right? That doesn't necessarily mean it's a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
So what is happening and what will continue to happen, particularly around like some key events like Edinburgh, like Lausanne in Switzerland, and the summit, and just other stuff, right? Like our engagement with Cardano Foundation, and CCv3 coming online soon enough. I think it's not just my ambition, but it's a lot of people's ambition, that there's some common ground and some common goals that people can begin to work towards. And this will be, in part to think about what are the right sorts of tracks or streams that would be required to make sure that we sort of plug all these and satisfy all these different needs. Catalyst is a grassroots funding mechanism currently. Should it be able to perpetually fund projects? Should it be, a lending vehicle? Should it be?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal, right? All of a sudden, we're a bank, for DC Spark, because it got approved, and that seems to me kind of legally problematic. I don't know how we can just do that. But if it is easy,
order in the court.
If it is,
please raise your hand to talk. You interrupted Chris.
No, I mean, listen, it's a fair comment. My point is that there are these different sorts of asks, right? And this is why I was saying that Fund 9's been a real watershed moment, because we've really stretched the rubber band. And now we've got to see about, where do we want the rubber band to contract to? And what is the purpose of Catalyst? What should it be? So this is the period, this is why it's really exciting for CCv4, because this is all the stuff that we're going to be going through. And I know I can't just give really concrete answers on this stuff, because it's a collective, collaborative approach. But coming back to the MBO point, it's all taking shape. So we're going to be part of this conversation, and I'm sure there's going to be more than enough opportunity to contribute to this discussion. It shouldn't just be, and I don't ever think Charles intends it to be, a top-down discussion. It needs to be collaborative in nature. That's the purpose of a members-based organization, right? We need to look at things like Linux Foundation or Mozilla Foundation or all these other sorts of examples where we can take the best bits of, but also understand where the tensions are and look to try to circumnavigate them.
At the risk of jumping in front of Quasar, I'm going to do it. From what I've heard from the community is that people are right now not very satisfied with how the foundation are organizing the summit or operating around that anyway. I think if people are going to make executive decisions about what to do with treasury funds, there's going to be a huge kickback from the community, and there's going to be a very big request to give people the option to literally opt out of funding the treasury with their transactions, especially if they feel like they don't have a say in how things change. And that is how like how Steve was kind of touching on there, is what a lot of people are worried about right now. I've heard a lot of people say that they feel like that funds are being wasted and that they're not being used to support projects that they feel should be supported at the expense, on the other side, projects that they don't think should be getting funded at all, like not talking about DC Spark specifically or anything, but there are things that are getting funded that should not be getting funded at all. There are practices happening within Catalyst right now that seem to just be gamified and exploited. And I think we're at that kind of growing pain right now where people are seeing ways that Catalyst can be manipulated and potentially are manipulating it. And right now, there are a lot of mechanisms in Catalyst that are ripe for exploiting as well. And this is a huge thing that needs to be addressed properly. Things like, one thing, just as an example, is the downvoting mechanism. And I'm not going to give you a full spiel about that, but it's quite obvious how that might be a bad idea. Right. Well, so that's it. That's all I'm going to say. But there are a lot of unhappy people within the community. Let's just put it that way.
It's very useful. It's very useful because, it's not just that whales can downvote shit that they don't want, but it is how people can say, hey, this project sucks, right? How else what other mechanism do you have to stop a bad project?
I know it's not an easy answer, you know.
Well,
and
but I mean,
I see both sides.
This gets to the heart of voter participation,
yeah.
Right? You have to vote not just to get your pet projects done. You have to vote to make sure that bullshit doesn't get through. And if people don't get that about voting yes or no, then they don't understand voting, in my opinion.
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just reporting what people have said, you know, and that's just one example. It's just the easiest one for everyone to see, you know, and a lot of it comes down to one aid or one vote. And it's not necessarily about upvoting and downvoting, but it's just that very kind of primitive mechanism that can easily be exploited when it's compared to one aid or one vote. And that's just something that's really been brought in that a lot of people have been moaning to me about. And obviously I can't do anything about it, but this is the forum where it should be kind of brought to catalyst, you know, so that's why I was doing so. Joey.
Yeah, I sent everyone that link for the Google family. So if you guys could respond to that. And just back to the election stuff, if you could take a look at the nomination platform form that I created and let me know via email or log in there and change it yourself so we can get that out to the people that have put in their nominations.
Yeah, will do. I'm not going to do it right now just because I'm sharing this, obviously, and I don't want everyone looking at what I'm doing on my computer.
Where did you put that, Joey?
I put those two forms actually in Slack in the general.
Okay, I'm going to see them there without Slack.
And also, I sent you the invite to the family Google site that has those forms.
Cool.
So you can modify them there.
Fab. It's in my inbox. Is it?
Well, with the election coming up, I feel like that's the next topic for us, isn't it, guys? So I need to just nip off quickly. I'll be back in 2 seconds. But if anyone wants to take over, and we'll get straight into it.
Wonderful. Chris, before you have to go as well, are there any other updates or last minute things? How much time do you have left?
I'm going to have to go in 5 minutes, unfortunately. I mean, the only thing that I would say just in response to what Reese was saying is that where there are allegations of people, you know, gaming the system, those have got to be recorded. Those have got to be, and then, you know, it can't just be an allegation. It's got to be with some level of evidence. It can't just be an instinct. And, you know, we also have to remember that, as I said, 1,100 proposals odd were on the ballot. 216 got funded. That means, you know, 80% of them didn't get funded. There's obviously going to be a lot of disappointment. There's going to be a lot of people that felt they voted for the projects that should have got funded, but you know, the way that the voting decision is made right now is it wasn't favourable to people whose projects didn't get funded. I mean, that's naturally going to cause some, and it's just really easy to fire off a tweet. Super easy. What I would really like to see is like where there is, you know, allegations of you know, and suspicions to get them to show it with evidence.
What can we set up Jorgemonder to pull the voting results?
Yeah, but the voting result is a private vote. You will only see that people voted. You won't see which way they voted, right? Yeah. And there's, you know, for every argument that, oh, this should be public. I mean, DREPs are going to be public for sure, but for every argument that is public, there's a counter argument as to why it shouldn't be. I don't want people to potentially coerce me into making a decision.
Exactly.
That's why it should be private.
Yep.
I only got half of that, sorry, Chris, but I got the first bit.
He's full-blown democratic. He's one train ride away from being an American here with our democracy here.
I just you know, in the same way that PAs are currently, you know, are anonymous, because PAs shouldn't run the risk of, being doxxed and then having the boys sent round to duff them up unless they give a good score.
No,
Right.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. I don't disagree with you to some extent, but you could. The thing about getting evidence is very difficult to provide evidence for any kind of, bad practices when it's on a private chain. It's on Jormungandr, isn't it? It's not anything anyone can actually check. Like we can't check votes or anything like that, anonymous or not. And another thing that comes up a lot with community members is that there are systems in place to protect people that mean it's much easier to exploit at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword as well. It's not as easy as saying, oh yeah, we protect one side of the coin, but what that actually means is, I could just ask a bunch of people to give me 5-star ratings, and so I could be manipulating the system in that way. So it's not an easy problem to solve. Like, I'm not expecting a right answer. I'm just voicing concerns of the community.
No, and that's fair to call out. Absolutely. It's governance is the hardest topic.
Yeah, 100%. Joey, sorry, mate.
Sorry. So I don't know if you guys read any of my thoughts for the day, but and one of those that I put out, Chris, I reflected back to the after town hall where you guys were talking about the new challenges, and you had mentioned that in the industry, especially with coding, there's people out there that get rewarded for finding the issues ahead of time. So I'm all for setting up some type of system where we can find the problems ahead of time, and those people that find them should be rewarded because they're going to find them anyway on the other side, and then they're going to be criticized for taking action on them. So just a different way of looking at it. Find them up front, figure out a way to fix them, so people won't be tempted to. It's like I've told my son, you're just keeping honest people honest by locking your car doors. If a person's a thief, he's going to come with a tool and he's going to be in your car in 30 seconds. But honest people will stay honest if you provide the right methods.
Yeah, and to your point as well, bug bounties, pen testing, like this is a huge thing. And we should be able to reward people who can point out these kind of problems in Catalyst, just as the same as any company would with their software or anything like that. We should have the ability for people to point out flaws and suggest ways of correcting them. And we should be able to iterate on it, and this is a thing that really is frustrating people in the community. And it's something that isn't easy for us to implement, but it is a good problem to solve. And if the next circle, the next guys who come in can help implement these kind of things, if we can start getting the ball rolling with the new reporting and D-work and problem sensing, we can start to actually build these processes so that coming forward, it's much easier for community members to come through and point out, like, everyone has a different perspective. So one person will come along and be able to see a very obvious flaw that everyone, all the builders have missed just because they've been so down in the trenches, right? And anyone comes in high level and goes, oh yeah, but obviously this is going to happen. And you're like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And it'll just give people the opportunity to actually bring suggestions forward, have them heard, and be able to implement solutions so we can iterate and iterate and iterate. And then these kinds of problems don't keep showing up because they show up every fund. It's not like a new thing that's coming that people are complaining about. These are persistent issues. And this is why people are upset, right? And why people are frustrated. And I completely get it, because I've been through the process and it sucks not getting funded, but it also sucks when you don't get funded and you see easy things that, well, from the outside, they look easy. I don't know how it's organized, but there are things that could just be tweaked slightly and could potentially have a huge impact on, like Joey was saying, keeping honest people honest.
So
it would make a much better experience.
Would be, I think it's important that we document what these issues are, and the issue is not we just need to open up Jormungandr and be
no. I know.
this is the thing, and that way we can kind of systematically go through and, you know, discuss and debate what those issues are. Certainly on, you know, the accountability side, and not letting too much funding go out the door to projects that aren't delivering. I mean, you know, again, you know, milestone-based funding is a part of this. We're going to start in October these sorts of not auditing, but like accountability working groups, where people, you know, from the community are going to start playing more of an active role. And that's always been the vision for this, right? That the internal team aren't the arbiters of, you know, whether the project is going well or not, because that's why we're asking for people to do public reporting. So I don't doubt that we'll be able to make progress on some of this stuff. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to us seeing it, you know, documented.
Yep.
So before you go, Chris, I have to ask you this question.
Sure.
Some of the CT teams have asked me about when they will get their rewards for, do they have to close out the entire project? Or at one time I thought you had talked about if you've done the first 2 sections, you'd get a percentage of that fund. But how is that working now? And is there a plan? What's the plan there?
Yeah, so all of the CTs that have delivered deliverables 1 and 2 are going to receive 30% of their reward. The reason why it's had to pause, and this sounds really lame, but with Danny on PTO, I want to be 100% crystal clear that the data that I have is as up to date as it is. And because Danny was working and the administrator of the sheets that had it, I just want to have that conversation with him. He's going to be back in like a week, and then the CTs that have delivered deliverable 1 and 2 will get their 30%. On the sort of tenure and longevity of their of their term, it was only ever expected that challenge teams are going to be working with the funded projects for 3 months post vote, right? Or once they're onboarded, once deliverable 2 is done. So, you know, my expectations are, as we see, you know, fund on fund, that there are going to be many instances where projects haven't fully closed out. And it's not fair to maintain and retain challenge teams for all that period of time, right? So it's a question that there's a little bit of flexibility there, obviously, because this is still pretty new, and we're just trying to find what's the best model for people to work with. But again, you know, we've had 2 closeout projects from or ROI insight reports from challenge teams so far. That's it, and we've had Fund 7 and Fund 8, which had loads of challenges. So I'd like to see challenge teams start, you know, wanting to conclude their efforts, because, you know, they so long as they can demonstrate some insights. And, you know, again, I'd encourage people to look at the Grow LATAM, Grow Cardano, and then the Nation Building's DApps reports. They're 2 really good benchmarks for, I think, you know, cohorts that haven't necessarily fully completed and closed out, but have still been able to produce some pretty useful insights. And I just sort of expect to see that from challenge teams coming through over the coming weeks.
Chris, is it possible to confirm whether challenge teams are just a flat 5,000 across the board, or is it 1% of the challenge funding amount?
It's not as simple as one or the other.
Okay.
And it's sort of dependent on the level of work, right? Like DApps products and integrations, there's 80 projects in that. And some of them, you know, and then we're also piloting this new milestone-based approach. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there is a budget of 1% per challenge in challenge teams, or in the parameters for challenge teams in Fund 9. As to whether that entire 1% gets spent, I think that's what's going to be a little bit variable depending on the challenge and how many projects are funded in it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Folks, I really hate to drop off, but I've got to depart now. great hanging with you and always working with you, collaborating, and looking forward to next week to be able to go through parameters with you too.
Just quickly on that 1%, thank you, Chris, by the way, for putting up with us moaning at you. If it's a parameter for 1% for a challenge team, it probably should be spent, right?
Well, it's not. It's, as I said, it's not. It's not that hard and fast. It's like the.
I know. But if it's allocated, like it probably should go to what it's been allocated for, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's more like.
Or the circle. Just give it
The parameter says.
It doesn't affect me, obviously, right? But I'm just thinking out loud. Like, if that's what it's for, it should be for that, and that's it.
Right. So this is how it actually is. This is the first parameter. Okay. Here we go. Putting it in the chat.
Sorry, mate.
Are we recording? Here we go.
It's in the chat. That is the first parameter that we can publicly publish, right? So it says base reward of 5K per team. Remaining funds after base rewards will be split proportionally amongst challenge teams according to the number of funded proposals relative to the total. And then you can go through that and ruminate on that whilst I depart, and we'll pick it up in a few days' time. How about that?
All right, copy that to mark down, and we'll have a nice chat about it later while you're gone.
We do need to know Haskell to make sense of this. Okay, great.
I know Haskell, Quasar. We'll figure it out together, mate. We'll figure it out. Chris, thank you so much. It's really good to see you. I look forward to doing handstands in 2 weeks' time.
Looking forward to it, mate. Cheers, guys. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, cool, guys. Let's get back on track. We went over the mile-based. What do we need to do to get the election going? We've got the form up, right? We got the form.
We need the criteria. We need the criteria next to the form everywhere, right? At the same time. I mean, I think, we need the criteria up so somebody doesn't naively put themselves forward and then they don't meet the criteria. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I agree. We have the criteria there, don't we?
I thought we did.
Yeah, we do, and I think I would preface it or asterisk it's it's the suggested criteria.
Yeah, but what I meant is we have that in the circle document, don't we? Yeah. So all it needs really is to be linked there, and I don't know, maybe we have a tick box on the form saying that that people who are nominated agree to this scope of work, right, and what's expected of them. Any thoughts?
Well, okay, so I mean, I'd like to find the form, and it needs to be included. I know it's in GitHub. We need to put it in the documents. Does it need to be in the nominee statement? I think we can publish it also in Discord.
It should be everywhere. I think
everywhere.
I think it should be on the nominating form at the top, right? You have to read this to get to there or whatever.
Add at least a link, which we could add that link to the GitHub that has the the criteria.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant a link as an absolute minimum. It definitely needs to be connected because you can't people shouldn't be nominated without at least the opportunity to understand what they're going up against, right, and the work that they have to do. Oh,
yeah.
Joey, you've been readmitted.
Well,
sorry, carry on, whoever was just talking.
I decided to bite my lip instead.
No,
go on. It's all right, Steve, let it out. You're not going to upset us. You probably have some good points.
I mean, the criteria is important to me, right? This thing's going to be on drip drops. We want to publicize this. We want a lot of good nominees, right? Yep. But we don't want to flood the thing with people who really don't know anything and they may just be an NFT degen with a community of God knows what, right? And I don't want to do that. It's the same problem as bullshit proposals in the funding rounds, right? We've got to be willing to say, hey, we're glad you're in the community, but just because you own, some Bison tokens, that doesn't mean you're an expert on governance. So no, you can't, you have to have some time in the community, because you have to have time into the community just to even understand all the bullshit that goes on, and I don't mean bullshit. I mean the nuanced discussions, the actual problem that Chris Baird has in his role, right? It's a decentralized community, and yet he's the representative of the company that owns the keys, right? That's a problem, right? And it's a problem he has, and everybody needs to understand that and not throw rocks at him just because that's his job. And we, there's a lot of there's an array of issues in the community that are similar to just that very aspect of input output still holding the keys to the treasury. And we need people who are thoughtful and understand what a transition, the entire Catalyst experiment is. It's been transitioning the whole time. And I don't want to listen to people who don't understand that. But as a voter.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So we should have it at the top of the form then.
I think so.
Right? Or maybe we could have like the bullet point version, like you need this, you need this, you need this. No detailed explanation, but just a link to the full document. Or is that not it?
Yeah, I don't think you need an explanation. I think it's just a very short, concise list. People want to ask about it. There's lots of people that can ask about it.
Okay.
They can ask me about it.
Well, I think that's right as well. I really think that it needs to be in plain English right there. So it's unavoidable.
Yeah. So other than that, like right now, like getting these forms up, all the places, the Cardano.org forum, the Discord servers, I don't know, where all the locations, other than making sure that's up, what do we need to do right now?
Well, that's it, right? Once that's up, we need to just be promoting it. We've got our video. We can put the links to both the form and the full terms, like the full document that explains what's expected of the Circle reps. So we can link both of those into like the video. We can link them onto the GitHub, Gitbook. We can have like that central point for people to come to, and we can just spread it everywhere. I think Cardano forum is great. I think also Reddit's a really good place to be putting it up, the Cardano Reddit. I think the foundation are the gatekeepers for that. So we maybe need to contact them just to get clearance to actually allow them to publish it, because that's a huge battle that people have with Reddit in general. Also Twitter.
I've never been there. I've never been
I don't go there very often for the exact reason that I just said. Because it's very hard to get anything up there unless they know you, really.
Yeah.
I think we also need to maybe organize some spaces, or just jump on spaces and try and promote it, because that is a really good way to get discussions up. I know a lot of you guys turn up to spaces anyway, so I know that won't be too much of a problem. Joey?
Yeah, I think it's important as when we get, like I've got these nominations, that somehow we get back in touch with them, let them know that we've received them, and let them know what the next step is for them. I mean, maybe it's reviewing that document you were talking about, Steve, where it defines everything that they were looking for, and then I want to encourage them to make a recording of their platform as well, so that they can put that out on different areas, so they don't have to be everywhere in a certain time. They could, be all over the world with their video. So anyway, it's just that would be for me the next step. Once we receive stuff from them, make sure we get back in touch with them somehow and tell them what to do for the next step.
Yeah, because they need to do their full kind of statements, right? So we need to get back in touch with them anyway.
So what is the next step?
Joey, add the email where to send those forms in case somebody doesn't want to hit submit. There's a request to add email to send the completed form to. Also, what we just discussed was the other instructions, the next steps. I think we can fine tune a message that illustrates here are the nominee forms or the nomination forms, and then following that we'll contact people, and then submitting nomination statements. We can provide a guide that was used in previous, but also encourage the videos and everything like that. So I think we just need to polish some of the forms and fine tune it, and then agree to post it everywhere.
Okay, everybody should have the email address. I put it in chat, but you should have it as well with that family invite. If you didn't get the family invite, let me know, and I'll correct your email address or whatever needs to be done there.
So in the interest of speed, would it be fair to say to look this over and maybe get a draft of that step 2 email together by end of day tomorrow?
Yes, if not sooner. But yeah.
Well, I only say end of day tomorrow because of the time zone differences for a lot of people. And after this call, I'm out. I'm not available for the rest of the night, so I'd have to do it tomorrow. But I'll definitely put time into it.
Yeah, let's see what we can finish up for you. Go ahead.
What are we looking at? Sorry, I missed what we were looking at. Looking over for tomorrow.
Well, to get the part 2 email, the follow-up email for platform statements, and for them to agree to the terms, like the terms of their role, and to maybe just adjust the form slightly to have those like the bullet points of the expectations of the role at the top of the form, as Steve was saying. That way we can start promoting it this weekend. That's the reason, because we do need to get it out as soon as possible, right? We need it out. We need to be announcing it in the next town hall. We need to make sure that it's already everywhere, and people are A, filling it out, and B, filling out their statements too, so that we can push closer and closer to this vote.
Right. And maybe an after town hall next Wednesday to, field questions from people.
Yeah, I really can't turn up at those, which are it's really frustrating for me, because I know that a lot of really good discussion happens there, but I literally can't do it personally.
Basically, I'm running silent during those meetings because I'm working.
Yeah. But if people can do that, then definitely it's a really good time to have an open discussion with people. Okay. So given that, me and Felix can touch base with drip drops. So once we start getting the nominations in, or more nominations in, because I know we've already had some, we can say it's open for however long. We can touch base with drip drops to figure out how long it's going to take to get that implemented. So we have a deadline for people to actually submit their statements, because if they're not done by the time drip drops need to be figuring out their part, then it's essentially too late for them. And so we need to be able to enforce those deadlines too. So I'll get in contact with them, or me and Felix together can get that in place, so we know what that timing is going to look like, because we'll have to relay that to people who are nominating themselves as well, and that would need to be in the follow-up email too, so they know when their statements need to be in.
And do we know when Fund 10 is set to begin?
That's end of October, isn't it? It's like a month from now.
Yeah, I saw that, and I saw November 6th as well today. So I don't know if it's sure, but let's just go with the end of November. I mean, end of October.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. I think the last epic end in October would be the great, to finish the votes. Like we talked about having the election over 2 epics.
Yep.
And this gives plenty of time for people to nominate and campaign.
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be any. I can't remember the last discussions where they took place, but there didn't seem. But it included Chris, and it didn't seem to me like anybody was concerned about how long the nomination process went for. It was more about, what was more important was to finish the election before Fund 10 started.
And we're already pushing our luck with that.
Yeah.
Can we say that we're going to keep nominations open until the 10th or the 17th? And during this time also be doing platform statements from the nominees, or?
I don't think so, because drip drops need time to get the voting put together, and they need a list of people like as soon as possible to be able to get that fully put together. So I don't know.
10th?
The 10th might. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to say, I had this conversation with Kyle, and he was like, "Look, we don't want to have 60 people on the ballot. Like there has to be." And I didn't really push him on that, but it begs the question of like, what are we actually going to get for nominees, and determining validity according to the criteria. These things, we're not going to do that in 5 minutes, I don't think, but we'll see.
No, it's going to be a pain in the ass, Steve. It really is.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough, and it's not going to be easy at all. But I understand where Carl's coming from, but we don't know how many nominations we're even going to get right now, and we just need to be getting nominations in at this point, don't we? Like realistically, if we need to figure out a way to trim the fat on the back end, then we're going to have to figure that out. I don't think the window should be open for 2 weeks though, because I don't think we have that much time to deal with it.
Right.
It's not because it's not a good idea. It's just because we've been waiting for like confirmation on parameter changes and stuff like that for a couple of weeks at this point, and it's just been eaten into the time we needed to actually be getting nominations in. And I know everyone's frustrated about that, but that's just the reality of it at this point.
Okay. So we can't really pick a date today. We need to talk with drip drops to confirm, but I mean, we've got to at least leave it open for at least more than a week. Today's the 29th. The 10th is less than 2 weeks. But not much.
Yeah, I'll shoot them a message, and I'll figure out where they need to be implementing it, like actual solid dates, and we'll have to just work with it or try and figure something out with them. But we need to get up as soon as.
Let's just. Can we all just look at calendars? I'm gonna look at my Eternal wallet to see the epic dates.
I'm looking at my Google Calendar to see the Google dates.
Well, I'm serious. I mean, we kind of, God damn it. Let's
Reese-
nail down dates.
Reese, are you actually still on the chat with the Trip Drops team? You know, we have a group chat with them.
Yeah, on Telegram, I believe so.
Exactly. So usually I keep them up to date as well. And all they are asking for is just the list, right? So from our side, what we need also for the list is then to say, okay, how does the nomination platform look like? Which outcomes do we have? That they know, how do they need to embed them into the ballot from their side? This is really an important topic as well that we have already a link to the sheet maybe, because we said we want to set the sheet public. Joey, if you are the creator of the Google form, when you go into settings, you can directly create in the sheet itself an automated spreadsheet where you have all the responses automatically added. And when you take this sheet and just share it with view only, for example, then we can handle this already over to TripTabs, and they know already, okay, which kind of question topics are asked and how do they display them.
All right, I'll check that out. Should we try to have a meeting with all of the nominees at some point just to answer their specific questions? Because like Steve said, some of them may change their mind, or some of them, you know, if with all the parameters that they have to agree to do. I don't know.
I feel like it'd be difficult to get everyone on a call, but I mean, we might be able to get a good handful or a majority. I think they need to read through the document themselves to understand the scope of works, in order to be able to submit their platform statements. You know, to be able to send those videos, because we kind of need them to agree to it in order to really consider them as nominees, right?
That's true. Then we need some method of that if they don't agree to let us know.
Yeah. So if like on the follow-up form on part 2, if we had like like a terms of service tick box, like I've read, or a services agreement, I've read and agreed to this, and it's just an opt-in or an opt-out. And if they're not opting in, then they're not nominated because they're not agreeing to the role, essentially.
Okay, back to dates. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Reese. No.
I was actually going to cue you in, Steve. So you crack on, mate.
Well, I was just able to take a look at the epic schedule, and so the 27th is the end of an epic or the beginning of a new epic, right? So I really feel like we should be targeting then that 10 days backwards from the 27th.
Okay,
which would take us to the 17th. And I, personally, I feel like if we say, I think it's tricky. And I don't know if the people who want to nominate themselves, and there's no way to know, like the people who are prepared to campaign over that period of time from the end of the nominee process or even before the nominee process start, like the ones who want it, they'll go for it as soon as they've filled out the nominee form. And, and I think the ones who are serious about it will. Right. But I don't know if 10 days for the election and 10 days for the nomination process, is a balanced way to look at it. If that's so, then like I think that what we could say is, the nominations are open until the 10th, or we could extend that to the 12th if we wanted to, because that's a town hall day.
Well, okay.
And there may be some synchronicity on that, in the sense of like, it gives Danny and Chris, a way to say, okay, we've had this open for more than 2 weeks, right? Because the form's up now. And we've had it, we will have had it up for more than 2 weeks, and nobody can say they didn't have enough time to nominate themselves,
Okay.
But then, this is not a fucking nation state election where you need, huge amounts of time between nomination and the voting period.
No, it's more just about drip drops, putting the mechanism up, and having it in place, and it's giving them time to build it or anything that's needed, right? That's the only concern that I have. We just if it's going to take them longer, then it's going to take longer at this point, right? So I think if we say the 12th, that's 2 weeks or longer, I think that's a good time, right? We announce the close on the town hall, and then that's it,
Right.
Yeah.
Felix, I wanted to ask, are you communicating right now with drip drops on Telegram? I wasn't a part of that group, so I don't know much about that conversation.
Well, it's the group which we set up some weeks ago after we said who wants to take charge of introducing the topic to them.
Mm.
And Reese and me, we went for it, and since then, we keep them up to date.
Yeah, that was after they had when they came on for the working group before. It was a while ago. It was like maybe July.
Probably
when they came
time
on.
is running through.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, we can add you in, Steve. By all means.
Yeah, do it. And I'm straight up Steve Lockhart on Telegram.
Okay. Let me find you as a friend, and then I can add you in, I think. But we'll get that done.
Yeah, add me in too, please. So I think we're at a point where we could tell the drip drops folks to go ahead and set everything up. All they need is one or two names to get the parameters set, and then they should be ready just to add additional names. So, as far as their technology, voting technology goes, they should be able to set everything up now.
All right. Well, let's have that discussion, and we'll figure the follow-up form and any adjustments to the form itself by close of play tomorrow, if that works. And then we can give it a proper promotion over the weekend and over the next kind of couple of weeks, and that really, really push this thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think the other stuff we spoke about, right? Catalyst Circle removing criteria.
Before we get to that, did you guys get any nominations anywhere else other than the Google Forms?
I've got some just on Twitter, but the Google Forms will be following. They'll come in. And I'm trying to set up, the Discord, Catalyst Discord, where people can come in and get the information as well. So, the answer is no, Joey, not direct through that form yet, but I've got others. Probably an unpopular opinion, but let's just say that Fund 10 is pushed back another week to November 6th or even November 11th. No need to discuss it, but there's a possibility there.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it's even quite likely it'll be pushed back, isn't it? Going by the history of Catalyst, there's usually a pushback of a week or so at some point. So we probably do have that extra little buffer. But I think it's still good to work to the tighter schedule. And is it the end of the world if the next iteration of Catalyst Circle starts a week late because we need to do it? We need to figure out the votes, or it takes drip drops a little bit longer to put it together, or we can't organize a vote in time. Then again, it's not the end of the world. No one's lives are at stake here, so it's not going to kill anyone.
You sure?
But let's just try and do our best to hit it.
Steve's looking pretty rough. I don't know.
We didn't explore this time, but maybe in the future, maybe Drip Drops has a nomination form, and that everything happens right there. The nominees, the candidates, everything in one spot. So maybe in the future, they should consider that.
Yeah, Joey, you go tell them how to fix their system.
I think Drip Drops were only interested in helping us do the voting mechanism, right, to get it on chain. So yeah, I think that's why they're not hosting the forms or anything. Maybe it's something we can figure out in the future. You know, if this is successful, then why not
They're
have
going
a
to continue,
discussion?
yeah. Right. If they're going to continue, and in the future, they're not going to do it for free. It's going to have to be something coming out of Circle to pay them. I mean, to reward them for it. So we'll see. We'll see where it leads. I mean, we're where we're at right now, which is a good place. I think.
We could give us some Drip Drops tokens.
I've got some Drip Drops tokens. I've got 2,000 Drip Drops tokens. I'll give them.
Yeesh, I got thousands. I'm dripping with Drip Drop tokens.
Okay, cool. So should we talk about the removing criteria then? We got about 12 minutes left. 11.
I guess it's a really important topic, because even if we started a code of conduct, this doesn't include at all how or what happens if we see a misabuse of whatnot. And in Catalyst, we are amazingly strong in starting stuff, but we are not really focusing on stopping stuff once it goes wild. So it might be really useful and maybe also helpful for the next circle if we can map. Maybe it's not our capacity to come up with something ourselves, but maybe engaging a community work group who can have a look on this topic, because it might be really needed as well for Circle version 4, I think. If not, so better, but yeah.
Yeah. The first thing that springs to mind, Felix, is have a D-work bounty for like a decision-making group, right? For people who will investigate, who will look at things objectively, who we can pay from as a bounty, to reward them putting in the time, like a jury, essentially.
Definitely.
So kind of like in the Wild West, right?
Kind of like in the Wild West, yeah.
We need this guy taken out. Here's the bounty.
No, it's more to pay people to put the
around.
time in to actually look at evidence, right? Or look at the whole situation, but not people within the circle, because someone might need to be removed because it might be more, the circle might be heavily involved in whatever has gone on. It's just first thing that come to mind. I didn't mean like Wild West as in hunting them down. It's more just having people from the community come forward to look at any claim, right? Rather than the circle being the arbiters.
I think maybe a sub-circle to look at this, because this is not something we're going to be able to solve at this point, for sure.
Yeah, and I like personally, I feel like, like these things come up, in government issues, right? Like they go outside, like special prosecutors is the term in the United States, right? And it's not necessarily somebody who works for the Department of Justice. It's somebody who's got experience and understands that particular field of study that's being, looked at, and I think that it does have to be on a case-by-case basis. And you could say, yeah, we'll always have a bounty available to whoever wants to serve on something like that. But, because like, you don't know who may be subjected to this kind of like prosecution.
And what for?
Could be, and what for. You have no idea who they might be connected to. And so you'll have to decide in the moment who best to serve on that committee or whatever you call it. I don't want to say the word tribunal. It just gets all military then.
The thing is, right, this kind of process, there's no way to make it sound nice, because what we're talking about is putting someone on trial, essentially, right? None of it's good. And I agree with what you're saying, but I think to get those people in, they need to be paid for putting the time in, right? And that's why I suggested like a DWAG bounty for it. It doesn't mean that we can't, or someone can't find competent, experienced people to do those roles, but I think we need to be able to pay them for their work if they're going to put the time in to actually look at it properly.
I just, the longer we're talking about it, Reese, the less I think we should try to decide about that right now, right? Because you don't know.
Yeah.
There's just too much that you don't know. And we don't have any authority to set aside a set amount of money anyway.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to define it all now. I'm just thinking about what might be a good process. Like, I don't have any experience in this. I'm self-employed. It's not anything I really need to deal with. So I'm not the very experienced person with this kind of thing.
Yeah, there are many community organizations that have methods of doing this, and maybe some of those, a subgroup could explore some of those to see which ones might apply to our community. I mean, we have them in the community I'm in. There's methods, and I'm sure in all the other communities there's some type of method of dealing with the situations. So
Masons use a rack, right?
we have
Kidding.
We have a lot of different ways. I mean, we have trials. We have sometimes we just talk to the person and ask them to step down quietly, and there's different things. It doesn't always have to be a big issue. I mean, sometimes someone in our organization, if someone commits a felony, then we ask them to resign. And if they do that, then everything's cool. If not, then we have a trial and then force the resignation. But it's not just our community. I mean, there's a lot of communities that have methods of dealing with these type of things.
Yeah. Well, I think Steve's right. I think we need to leave. We just need to relay to people that it's possible to be removed if you're misconducting yourself or being, naughty, essentially. And we don't know how that's going to look at any given point. But if something comes up, and then it will need to be dealt with. However it's dealt with, we can work, or people, whoever's involved with it, can worry about that at the time, like figure out the appropriate kind of course of action and how to handle it. But I think I agree with Steve that we can't really decide on that now.
I mean, is everybody here okay with whatever the last version of the code of conduct says? I mean, are you okay with it, Felix? I mean, is it enough? Is it okay to post that along with the nomination information?
It's 1,000 times better than what we had before. Before we had nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
But
again, I think as long as all of this stuff, this is just like one of those things nominees need to know. That there is a code of conduct, that there is all that.
Yeah, at the minute it's a little bit of a mess, isn't it? And it's got a lot of our comments on it. I think it would be worth maybe once we get the votes going, actually tidying that up, like in one of our future meetings, actually going over it or finding some time outside.
Yeah, I think a new document, just for this purpose is a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, guys, I think we've all kind of agreed to leave that out for the minute. We're about at the end, 4 minutes to go. So I'm going to just get rid of this form at this point so I can look at all the pretty faces. Sorry that you got stuck with me hosting this call.
You did great. You did great.
Yeah, you did great. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
I found that I probably talked more than I needed to at some points. But let's go around in circles, see how everyone's feeling, and get some feedback from everyone. Start with Steve.
I feel fine, and I appreciate you. I didn't think you talked too much, I think you're just right.
Okay.
I think I probably feel about you the way your mother feels about you. You're just.
Oh,
I'm her favorite.
That's what she says, right?
Yeah, I'm one of 5, so she probably does say it to everyone. All right, but thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Joey?
I'm good. I'm very happy that we've already received nominees, and a couple nominated themselves, and a couple were nominated by others. So that's pretty exciting to get that right off the bat. So I'm looking forward to the next step where we can collaborate with them a little bit and get them moving forward in the process.
Awesome. Thank you. Quasar, you're up.
thank you. I'm very, very happy about the meeting, about the nominations, and excited to address these new opportunities known as challenges that the circle has ahead. And hopefully we can get some people doing some retrospectives as part of the circle nomination form. Well, let's look at, getting not just nominees and everything, but getting people the opportunity to do some problem sensing on the job. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, awesome. Felix.
Yeah, also pretty glad because what we achieved some really awesome stuff actually. Today we got the official okay from Chris that parameter change, let's go for it. And guys, this is a massive impactful thing. And this has been such a difficult task. So thanks everyone for keep pushing this through. And thanks a lot for hosting, Reese. You have pretty good coaching skills, I would say. Directly see you as a sports coach with a bunch of really difficult youngsters who don't know where to go in life, and you just grab them and say, here you go.
Yeah,
yes,
thanks, man. My youngsters are all adults, so I crack the whip occasionally.
6 years old, but calling them adult.
I feel really good as well, guys. We're right there. We're right on the edge of this. I'm really looking forward to getting this over the line and being able to spread our nomination form all across the Cardano community. It's going to be pretty amazing. I think a lot of problems have come from the fund recently, which is good. It's good to have these discussions. And I really think over the next couple of weeks we can start getting them on paper in some form, like Chris said, and start focusing on those for the next circle rather than talking about the vote over and over again. So it's all moving forward, and I look forward to catching up with you outside of this, all of you.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll get around.
Thanks, everyone.